On today's episode, Franchesa Chiorando and Jason Dupree join me for the very first episode of You're So Smart. Welcome to the OCR Report podcast. The OCR Report is the live stream home for the sport of obstacle course racing. Become a member at patreon.com/the OCR Report and help us ensure OCR is here for the next 100 years. My name is Will Hicks, and this is the OCR Report. This is the OCR Report podcast. Thank you for listening. My name is Will Hicks. My guests today will be Jason Dupree and Fran Chiorando, who are on hold waiting for 1 second. Before I get with them, I want to thank you for listening. You can email me, Will, at theocrreport.com. You can follow us on Instagram at the OCR Report, and you can become a member. If you like what we do, you want to support the podcasts, support live streaming, support the sport of OCR, you can go to patreon.com/the OCR Report. Today on our show, the very first episode of You're So Smart, the only OCR Report game show.
Hey, baby, you're so smart. Look at what you're doing now. You're so great.
Our first guest today is Jason Dupree. Jason is the host of OCR Talk and the live stream producer for the OCR Report. Jason, welcome.
Hey, Will, thanks for having me. This is a bit of a surprise.
And our competing guest is Fran Chiorando. Fran is the host of the OCR WC podcast and the co-host of Carlo and Fran Get OCR Adjacent. Welcome to the show, Fran.
Thank you so much, Will Hicks. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So we're going to compete for amazing prizes. First prize in today's episode is second pick at the bunks at the OCR Report house at World's Toughest Mudder. So good luck to both of you. That's first prize. Second prize is a set of steak knives. And nobody's here to play for third. So lucky them. We're going to discuss topics. As we discuss the topics, each of you will be assigned a point value. And whoever has the most points at the end of our show is the winner.
So are you assigning the points?
Absolutely. I'm assigning the points as I am the host of the show. All right. So talking about our topics for the show, this is the part of the show we call the Jason Do Preview. Topics will include 100-meter OCR, should goats need to qualify for elite heats, and Spartan changing back to age group heats for 2025. And if we have time for bonus categories, we will talk about something else, a long-standing debate in the community. But let's see if we get there. So here's the rules of the show. I will give you the topic. You will have 2 minutes to make your point. The other person will have 2 minutes to make their point. If you're making the same point, that's awesome. But whoever makes the point better will get the points. Are there any questions?
I think I'm good.
Fran, do you understand the rules of the show?
I absolutely understand the rules of the show, and I am ready to rock and roll.
First topic is 100-meter OCR. Fran, we drew straws backstage, and you won the drawing, so you will get to go first. 100-meter OCR is a new-ish format to the sport of OCR. It is described as ninja style. There is a championship in Croatia happening soon in the 100-meter OCR. We've all seen Ninja Warrior for years. It's very popular on television. What are your thoughts with obstacle course racing and 100-meter OCR?
So the 100-meter OCR format is currently kind of the sweetheart of OCR, I'd say, among the upper echelons of the OCR crowd, mainly because of the cliche it can draw with it being included in the modern pentathlon. A bit of competition going on lately in terms of the 100-meter OCR. We've seen recently in the last couple of days, Joe DeSena put out a video saying, hey, everybody, why are you not coming to Croatia? We're doing a 100-meter world championship. It's going to be the first 100-meter world championship. We have huge prize money. Now, the one piece of truth in that is there is huge prize money, massive prize money for this 100-meter world championship happening in Croatia by Spartan Race. a few people saying, actually, Joe, it's not the first 100 meters. We had that this year and last year. And my counterpoint to that is actually the 100 meters in OCR has existed since 2018 when OCRWC introduced it in London. Is it OCR or is it Ninja? I don't know. I think, as my favorite phrase that I use all the time, OCR is a baby sport and we've not yet found our path. Should it exist as part of the sport? Currently, yes, I think so, because it is obstacle course racing. Is it what I believe to be true to the roots of obstacle course racing? Not necessarily, but I'm absolutely not against development, so long as it is done in the interest of the sport and not just for development's sake. How do I feel about it? I think it's a totally different discipline within OCR. And I think as time goes on, we will see different athletes emerge. And I think it definitely has its place if it's done properly. I think OCRWC has not quite got it right yet, but I think this year could be really, really interesting and people should keep their eyes open as to what we're doing. Every year at OCRWC, the 100 meter has been different as we've developed and explored what it could be. And currently it is kind of a ninja sport. Do I think it should be part of the Olympics? Absolutely, I do not. I am not up for and this is my personal view and only my personal view, I'm not up for it being part of modern pentathlon and being diluted. How much time do I have?
And you're done.
There we go.
Jason Dupree, 2 minutes. Go.
I'll start off by saying, if you ask me, take it or leave it, 100 meter OCR, I would say leave it. I personally don't see it as being as important or enjoyable to watch as the longer distance OCR. Obviously, it's easier to watch, but when I view a clip on Instagram or something and it's 100 meter, I usually don't finish watching the clip. It's just not something that really my love for OCR doesn't really extend to that. And it's partially because what I've seen it be is ninja. Now, looking at where it's happened, the 100 meter course has happened at FISO, at OCRWC. We're about to see it in Croatia. And I think the way that OCRWC has done it, even all the way back to 2018 in London, what we've seen even just last year in Mammoth with the Spartan obstacles, all of that felt more like an OCR, an actual obstacle course. Whereas what we see at FISO looks more like a ninja course. And ninja is its own thing already. Why are we trying to bring that into our sport? So I'm okay with it being there, but I think if it's going to be there, it shouldn't be a ninja course. It should be more of an obstacle course in the way that we know it. And that's why I actually lean more towards the 400 meter or something a little bit longer. A short course can be a short course without being 100 meters. So that's my stance. I'll go ahead and leave it at that.
Well done, Fran. Would you like 1 minute to follow up?
Absolutely. I would agree with Jason on many of his points. And I actually have a huge interest in a 500 to 600 meter course, and it's something that I'm constantly asking for. And I think that could be kind of the next big development in the sport and something that I would be very, very interested in. Do I think 100 meter could be interesting for OCR? Yeah, if done properly. Do I want to do it? No, not really.
Jason, 1 minute.
I actually have done. I've participated in the 100 meter course at OCRWC and did enjoy trying it out and trying to do it. So it's not like I'm saying that I don't like it at all. But yeah, I think as long as it's in a format that fits what we know and love, and it's not ninja, then I think we're good. I know OCRWC has been reiterating it every year. So they're really trying to find what fits our community the best. And they've been doing a good job. It's changed each time. And I love seeing that. I love seeing them trying to make it better and better.
I am tallying the comments from the audience online, and they're voting, and they vote that Fran gets the first point. Good job, Fran. It was very close, though. The vote was so close.
I want to meet this panel.
Next topic. Jason Dupree up first. Should outstanding world championship athletes who have demonstrated their value and their level of excellence on the course, we're talking guys like Ryan Atkins, Nicole Miracle, John Albin, should the top athletes be required to qualify to race in elite heats or in championship races? Jason Dupree, 2 minutes.
I'll start with an absolutely. They should be allowed to run without having to go through the hurdles that the normal qualifying system takes them through. We've seen this as far back as John Albin having to fly to Malaysia, I believe it was, to run an ultra before he could do the Ultra World Championships. And, this is John Albin, who had already won, with a team with Ryan, World's Toughest Mudder, which is the same format that they were doing. Had run 100 miles, 100 or more. I forget what exactly they had, but yeah. So people like that. When we say like people should be allowed to not have to do the criteria, these are not just anybody. These are the people that the racers, the race organizers know are going to be contending for podium, and making them have to travel around the world. If they want to travel, that's great. But if they got to travel and that's what keeps them from racing in the highest level, like that's what we want to see. We want to see the best people race at the highest level. So those people should be allowed. We know who those people are. It's not like just whoever's coming in and taking a podium spot. And honestly, if they took a guess, wild cards, if they take a guess and ask them to participate because they think they'll do well, that's great too. Nothing wrong with that. The race should, until it's a federated thing, the race should have the ability to say who they want to bring in. And it doesn't hurt anybody. I think the people that complain about it are the ones that feel like they're being hurt by it, but they're not going to make that podium anyway. So.
Franchesa Chiorando, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Athletes who have already proven themselves to be elite athletes, to be podium-winning athletes, absolutely should not have to qualify in the qualifying period, whether that be a year, 6 months, 3 months, for a certain championship event. One, we want to encourage competitiveness and elite level competitiveness in championship events. So we certainly don't want to be gatekeeping and keeping people out, but they have earned the right to be there by their past performances. People like John Albert, people like Brian, Lindsay, Nicole Miracle does not need to qualify for a championship event. We know who she is. We know she can do it. We know she has that right. There is a long-standing precedence in competitive sports, particularly individual competitive sports, where people earn the right over time to appear at races. If you have podiumed at a race, if Nicole Miracle had done nothing all year, she is coming to OCR Dupree because she won last year. She won the 3K. She came second on the 15K. She has that right. She has nothing more to prove. And I have got absolutely no interest in keeping people away from the sport, when them being there will improve the competition for them, for everyone, and overall for the health of the sport. People who perhaps are not particularly well versed in how competitive sport works and perhaps quite new to it might find it offensive, but it is just the way that it works. It is just the way that individual competitive sport works across many, many different sports. So no, they shouldn't have to qualify. They have earned that right through past performances, even if it's been a couple of years. So no, they don't have to qualify.
Jason Dupree, 1 minute follow-up question, but that's not fair.
That was actually going to be my response. Is the reason this topic has come up is because people, particularly at the Pan Am Championships and the Euro Spartan Euro Championships, were complaining that they had, or not necessarily them, but certain people had traveled, paid money to participate in these qualifying events, and that they deserve to be there instead, as opposed to the GOATs, the pros deserving to be there too. And I'm not saying they do deserve to be there. They went through the qualifications. That's great. but that doesn't mean that the person that already has the accolades, already has the talent and what we know to be worthy of being at these events. So no, it's not fair, but it's right.
Franchesa Chiorando, but it's not fair. 1 minute.
It's people who say things aren't fair normally say that because they feel like they've been slighted. And I think the best thing to do is put yourself in the other person's position and say, would I still say it's not fair if I'm the other person? Can I be objective about this and look at it as a meta view and say, is this actually a fair situation? I am obsessed with fairness. I am obsessed with rules. I'm obsessed with things being okay. And this is a thing that I think is fair because I will repeat myself. These people have earned that right. You are in the process of earning that right. But if you carry on this sport for 2, 3, 4 years, you will also earn that right. And you will get that right to turn up to championships without necessarily attending these qualification races. Those qualification races are for people who haven't yet earned that right. So it is fair. It's a process and it's fair.
Our studio audience, you can tell we have a studio audience because they applaud. Hey, studio audience, give us another cheer. You guys are so funny. Our studio audience is tabulating the votes. Oh, it looks like they really like the way Fran said process, but the point goes to Jason. Well done, Jason.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Third category. Spartans changing their elite heat process for 2025 back to how it was 2023 and before, back to age group heats, moving away from all of the age group and elite athletes are in the same bucket, and the top athletes win the competitive heat, and then age group is sorted out after that, after the top 3. Spartan changing their elite/age group heats back to pre-2024 status. Fran, what do you think about that? 2 minutes.
On a personal level, I prefer the concept of an overall competitive heat. I believe it would encourage more women to race because it would be less exposing having small races, having, small waves, where if you were one of 4, the chances you could come last. And that's kind of scary. So I honestly believe this was a better idea. I'm not sure the public racing has agreed with that. And I think Spartan are in a period of evolving, changing, and trying to find the best way to run the sport that is best for all the athletes, age group, elite, open, and also best as a business. Because I respect the choices that they made, because I know that they are made with great, great, great thought. I've always said that. I'm obviously a bit biased now because I work for them, but I do believe that the people making those choices are doing them fully bridge the competitive sport side of OCR, and we continue to see it grow. And we see my favorite subject, women in the sport, grow. I like the idea of the competitive side. If it doesn't work, what I do respect about Spartan is they will take criticism on board. They will encourage criticism and they'll go, okay, let's change. People might say Spartan have changed too much in the last few years. They bring new things in. They change it before it's had a chance. I think there's a lot more thought that goes into it than what people see on the outside. And they're very quick to react to what they think is going to work and what is going to work.
Jason Dupree, 2 minutes.
I think there's a short-term answer and there's a long-term answer. In the short term, yes, it is frustrating to see they had this system in place that had a lot of positives to it, and now they're basically just scrapping it and starting over. So in the short term, it does suck that you had a good system where, like Francesca's saying, there's these everybody's getting to run together. You're finding out who the actual. It's not just who's the best pro and who's the best age group. You're finding out amongst the group who is the best out of all of them, and then it rolls down to the age group. And we see that in other brands, and it works very well. So that going away is a shame. Now, this year, the biggest shame to me was that the same process didn't happen at the regional, the series races and the regional races. You had like this discrepancy between the way it happened at a normal weekend to the series. And I didn't care for that. The way the series just went back to having age group being separate. That's the way it's going to be next year anyways. So why did they do that? So long term though, it is good. Like they are always trying. They are always trying to make it better. Just like OCRWC with the 100-meter course. It's always trying to get better. They don't always get it right, and none of us ever do. Everybody that goes out on a limb and tries something new is always going to make mistakes until they find the right solution. You never. I keep saying this a lot. I'm going to find every single mistake that's possible to make when it comes to live stream and stuff. They're doing the same thing. So I do applaud that, and I'm happy to see them continue to evolve and make it better, and just look forward to what's to come.
Jason makes a good point, but he also makes both sides of the argument. 1 minute to follow up.
I can't disagree with him. I can't disagree with what he's saying. I think I like the way he formatted it in terms of the short term and the long term view. And I think Jason also has a good hold on what is happening at more US races than I do. So I respect his opinion in terms of the difference between the different events that are happening. And I agree with them in terms of making mistakes. I'm a big fan of making mistakes. Making mistakes is how you perfect things and how you learn. They'll get it right. And yeah, I'm on board with Jason on this one.
Jason Dupree, 1 minute.
I think what Francesca was saying about, her being in the company, in Spartan, understanding, seeing some of the back end, that should go a long way. And that's something that people just don't take into consideration, is all the other things that they don't see. So that's the best thing that people can do, is try and take that into consideration. Like a big part of that is staff changing of who made these decisions for this year versus who's going to make those decisions for next year. And even who made those decisions the year prior. It's been different people each time. So it's definitely understandable. It's kind of like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Until they get somebody that's like going to head up the whole thing and see it all the way through, it won't become the best thing it can be. So once we get that, then I think we'll be good.
Jason, I'm getting a note from our studio audience here. You had the argument won until you brought in the comic book movie stuff. So point goes to Fran. Current score is 2-1. Our final topic. Can Fran take it away, or will Jason surge from behind? Obstacle completion formats. For a long time in the OCR industry, there was a debate: burpees versus bands. Bands over burpees was even a rallying cry of the band fans. Has that changed over the last years? Have we seen moving away from burp bands back toward a penalty option, such as burpees or penalty loops? Obstacle completion penalty formats. Jason Dupree, 2 minutes.
So the options we see out there: Spartan with penalty loops, which we've seen, even before Spartan started doing it, we saw with Toughest in Europe had a great system for their penalties. It was even different, so I won't get into that. But OCRWC with mandatory obstacle completion, and now FISA with this 3-band system, which I will just straight up say I'm not a fan of. All these little things that you have to do in order to continue the race. Like it breaks up the flow of the race. So absolutely, I think mandatory obstacle completion is the way to go. But penalties, whether it be a loop or another task, done well, can work. I've seen it work well. But I think I'm going to lose my 2 minutes with my train of thought here. Another side of the argument is bells. What do you do when you complete the obstacle? Is it just a bell that you got to hit, and that in itself becomes a whole issue? Within the bell, does that mean you didn't do the obstacle? Not really. Savage Race lets you kick the bell still. I definitely understand that there's a whole insurance policy behind all that stuff that can control that. I just recently heard about another race that didn't use bells. Instead, they just did clearance. You got to get past a certain line. I think there are other options that are out there that could still be the best solution that we haven't explored yet. So I would love to see us, the sport explore some of those a little deeper before we can really find out what's the best. But yeah, so even in mandatory obstacle completion, it's still great, and penalties can be good if done well.
Franchesa Chiorando, obstacle completion and penalty formats, 2 minutes.
I'm going to respond to the bell and the completing an obstacle probably in my rebut afterwards, unless we'll ask a different question. But to talk about mandatory completion versus penalties, I think the question that we want to ask in order to answer that question is, what are we looking for from an obstacle course race, specifically a championship? Now, I think most people would agree, unless they're trying to be facetious, that the best obstacle course races are crowned at the OCR World Championships. That is the original OCR World Championships, where they very simply have beautifully designed courses, intuitive with very, very simple but tricky obstacles where you must complete every single one. The band is a mind F. It's difficult, but it means you have to complete an obstacle. And that, in my mind, and I always believed that from the start, crowns the very best obstacle course races. Penalty loops can work. Of course they can work, but are we getting the best obstacle course races from penalty loops? Penalty loops are useful for 24-hour races, ultra races, but a 15K and below distance, we need to be seeing athletes completing obstacles. If they're not completing obstacles and they're running as fast as they can around a loop, they're just good runners. And I'm not interested in crowning the best runners. Let's go watch track and field. I think in order for mandatory obstacle to be successful, it needs to be simple. I think the beauty of obstacle course racing is it should be simple, and that is where the difficulty lies. And the one band system is the most straightforward, it's the most entertaining, it leaves no room for error, it is simple, easy to understand, and allows athletes to do what they're there to do, which is race.
Jason Dupree, follow-up, 1 minute.
I will follow up with going back to Toughest and the way they used to do penalty loops, and why I think that there is a place for it if it's done well, because the way they did it was that you had multiple lanes of like an easier route on a rig and a harder route on a rig. And if you completed the harder route, you bypassed whatever the penalty was, basically. But if you either failed or you did the easier route, I think there might have even been a third option in there, you went through more obstacles. Like if you went the easier route, you had to do a couple of crawls after, or if you failed, you had to go do a sandbag carry out in the through the woods through a penalty loop. And we saw it was just unique. Like I definitely agree, mandatory obstacle completion is great, but that was so unique and special to that race. It was just different and kind of awesome. So I think there's a place for it, and I'll stop there.
Franchesa Chiorando, 1 minute.
I think the way Toughest did the fast and slow lanes was fantastic, and I respect that greatly. I would love to see the numbers on whether people taking the slow lanes would ever win, because I'll go back to the argument of, are we trying to crown the best obstacle course racer? Now, obstacles which allow people to complete them in different ways. Let's look at drop zone at OCRWC. You can lache if you're strong enough, or you go up and down. It depends. Everyone has a different route, but it's exactly the same obstacle for everyone, and they take a different route. I think designing obstacles like that is the way forward. And as well, from a behind the scenes point of view, you've got to think about money and how it's going to be viable. So I still stick by, although for fun and for people testing themselves, slow lanes, fast lanes are great. But in terms of a championship event, which is what I'm talking about here, to crown the best obstacle course racer, mandatory completion with one band is going to be my winner until someone comes up with something magically new.
Studio audience is going wild for both of you. Well done. Let's see what they say. They are accumulating their votes. They are oh my. Is this right? Okay. Fran, you get a point, but Jason, you get 2 points. Good job.
Well, when Francesca was talking about the world championships, of course I do agree with that. Yeah. mandatory obstacle completion.
You're not going to believe this. That means our final score is 3-3. I don't have a tiebreaker. This is the first episode. What are we going to do, guys? How about this? Jason, you have 1 minute for any last thoughts, anything you want before we promote our shows and our podcasts and send people off to get reviews ready.
Okay. Yeah. Last thoughts. The world of OCR, like we were saying with the 100-meter course, OCR doesn't fit in a little tiny box. So, the argument does have to be, or the debate doesn't have to be boiled down to something specific when you're arguing bans over burpees. Like obviously OCRWC is perfect with the way they do their penalties, no penalties, mandatory obstacle completion. But there is so much else to explore in the world of OCR.
Franchesa Chiorando, 60 seconds. Anything you'd like?
I think there is a lot still to explore in the world of OCR. I'm not sure we will ever see a solution better than the mandatory ban, but I'm completely open to it. I'm also completely open to any developments that we see. As I say, I'm very, very open to things progressing, just not for progression's sake. I see a lot right now in the sport where I don't necessarily agree with the motivations behind what is happening in the sport, and is it in the best interest of the sport? My only question whenever any change comes in, and because we know everyone is going to criticize things, there's always going to be criticism, is are you making the decisions that are in the best interest of the sport and of the athletes? And if you are, then it is the right thing and you stand by it. But I think we've got a bit of time to go until that's definitely the truth.
I got to add to it. I'm sorry, Will, I'm messing the show up. Do you think mandatory obstacle completion should be at World's Toughest?
Do I think, as the host of this game show?
Well, that was a question for Franchesa.
Oh, good.
No, mandatory obstacle completion should not exist at an event like World's Toughest Mudder. It's a 24-hour event. If you listen to Josh Fiore on Obstacle Running Adventures the other day, he was talking about twinkle toes, and he said after 24 hours you can't expect your legs to behave the way they would after 1 hour. I think that in itself is a whole different beast, and penalty laps on that event is completely fine because it's a different type of event, which is why I said on anything 15K and below, for sure, mandatory obstacle completion is the correct route. But for other events, ultras and 24-hour races, penalty loops are okay.
That may be a
that's just what I wanted to point out, that we're not talking about just one event here.
No.
Fran, how can people listen to your podcasts and follow you on social media?
They can find the OCRWC podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if they want to follow me on social media, don't, because I have a private profile, but they can follow OCRWC and check out everything that we do, and follow you guys, where they'll also find the Fran and Carlo Get OCR Adjacent show published every single week.
Jason, how can people find your podcast and follow you on social media?
OCR Talk on just on podcasts and YouTube, and my personal Instagram, @Dupree_OCR, and OCR Report YouTube for all of the live streams that I do. And I just recorded an episode of OCR Talk today that will be out on Wednesday. I don't know when they'll hear this, but
today is part of 30 podcasts in 30 days, 30 podcasts half September. Thank you guys for being a part. For the listeners at home, if you'd like to be a guest on You're So Smart, send me an email, will@theocrreport.com. Maybe we'll do it again. I would love to do it again. I'd love to have some people that I've never had on the show before. If you are listening to this and you're like, I have a better point than that, but you don't know what the topics are. So maybe not. will@theocrreport.com. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. I would love to hear what you think of our show. The show is called...
Hey, baby, you're so smart. Look at what you're doing now. You're so great.
Fran and Jason, thanks much.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you so much, Will.
Special thanks to Fran and Jason for appearing on this episode of You're So Smart, the only OCR game show. They did not know they were going to be on a game show when they got on the Zoom call. So They're good sports. Thank you, Fran and Jason. If you want to be a guest, I'm serious. Email me, will@theocrreport.com. If you have ideas for topics, hot takes, shoot me an email. Happy to hear it. I don't know. We'll play with it. We'll see what happens. It's a fun idea. Who do you think won? Was Fran robbed? Was Jason robbed? Do you agree with the tie? Nobody likes a tie. We play to win, baby. Let me know in a review. Apple Podcasts. lovethepodcast.com/OCR. lovethepodcast.com/OCR. Leave us a review and let me know who you think should have won. And follow us on Instagram at the OCR Report. Become a member of the OCR Report. If you enjoy what we do, the work we do, if you have found value, we would love to have you on board as a member. Patreon.com/the OCR Report for as little as $5 a month. Be sure to tune into the other podcasts. Today is day 22 of 30 podcasts hath September. Tomorrow will be Mike and Caitlin. Yesterday was Jess and Faye. Did you guys listen to that? Nitty Gritty Training? Check that out. Some training tips coming back from childbirth. Yeah, it's just fun to hear them, talk training, talk OCR. All right, let's get out of here. I will talk with you soon. Go spend time with someone you love. Go ahead.
Recording in progress.
You got to be less enthusiastic.
Recording in progress.